So when we know death is inevitable, why is it so hard to accept? It's a really interesting dichotomy because on the one hand, the only thing that is sure about life is death. Literally, there are no other guarantees. If somebody said to me, you have to tell my future, tell me something, the only thing that I could say with confidence is, you will die. The rest, I don't know. I mean, you could say, okay, there's a good chance this, good chance that, depending on who you are, what you do. But I couldn't say anything with certainty other than you will die. So on the one hand, we have this one certainty. And on the other hand, we actually live our lives as though death were something that will never happen. So we're living in this weird irony of the only thing we can count on is the only thing that most of us are not considering when we're actually making our minute-to-minute, hour-to-hour decisions. I think the reason for that is it's scary. Most of us live our lives from the place of our egos. And I don't mean our egos in a bad sense. I don't mean egos in a sense of you're arrogant but ego in the sense of that false self, that identity, that personality, that identification with the body, the role, the history. And in order to be able to live from that place, I need to believe that there's some sort of inherent value in that. I have to believe that there's some sort of inherent isness of this. And the minute that I recognize that actually all that really is the soul, because this body is just degenerating, could go any moment. I mean, we have no idea. This roof could collapse on us. We could all go together. Could be an earthquake. The earth could open up, swallow us all together. Ganga could rise up. I mean, any one of a million things could happen. We have no idea. But if I'm going to live from the place of my roles, from the place of my identity as this body, as my job, as my relationships, as the money I make, as what I look like, as all of these things, I have to believe in some kind, at least of semi-permanence of it, some validity in it. But the awareness of death is something that carries with it also the aspect that, well, if the body's dying, what is it that's not dying? Who am I really? If the body dies, and if we believe in reincarnation, which I do, I'm going to get another one. Well, then what is it that's actually stable? It's not the body, it's not the bank account, it's not the title, it's not the career, it's not the relationships. It's the soul. But that's very scary to the ego, because the ego really likes to be the king of everything. The ego likes to think that it's sort of all about the ego. And of course the ego doesn't call itself the ego calls itself I. So the ego has kind of taken kabza of everything. and likes to make it be all about that. It's all about your title. It's all about your career. It's all about your identity. And every moment that you're aware of death is a moment that shakes the ego. And since what most of our thoughts are rooted in is stuff that comes from the ego, we're not thinking about death. So we live in that tragic irony. And the sages and the saints and the mystics remind us over and over again, you don't know how to live unless you know how to die. And you're not really living unless you're living with an acute awareness of death. And it's not morbid, and it's not depressing. In fact, it's the opposite. It makes every moment so precious. It makes tiny little things really irrelevant. As you know, whenever anybody gets diagnosed with a terminal illness, sometimes somehow immediately the things that mattered no longer matter. The neighbor whose noise was too loud, the guy whose dog barked, the annoying colleague, all these things that, occupied your brain all the time suddenly don't matter at all. They're utterly irrelevant. Because life is slipping through your hands. Or slipping through the hands of one you love. And so a beautiful practice is to live in as much awareness of death as you can. Again, not morbidly, not from a depressed state, but how to do it both. One of the personal practices I have is the cremation ground for Rishikesh is just a little bit down from on the other side of the river. If you're looking immediately across from where we have Arati, it's not right there, but it's a little bit down. So if directly across were 12 o'clock, this would be, say maybe at 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock down the river. And sometimes there'll be a cremation going on because, of course, you have to do a cremation before sunset. And so sometimes there'll be a cremation going on. And whenever there is, I use the opportunity to really try to meditate with my eyes open in a way where I am simultaneously here in the Arti ecstatically celebrating, full of life and joy, bliss, gratitude. And I'm over there, standing around a loved one who's burning. And if I can go deep enough, I'm the one being burned. And simply the attempt to live in those three places simultaneously. It's easy to go from one to the other back and forth. It's very, very, very difficult to hold all of that awareness at the same time. To create enough space inside that you're burning and you're dancing. You're singing and you're mourning. But for the moments, for the split second moments, when it happens, it's so deep and so profound and so real that for a moment you touch. You really touch what this is all about. That we're not the body. And that actually I am the one burning. Because that time-space thing starts to fold in such a way and collapse in such a way that it's not just about imagining when it will be me who is burning, but actually in this moment. Because this whole linear continuum of time anyway we know isn't true. Both from quantum physics as well as from spirituality. And so can you get unstuck enough of that linear aspect of time that actually that is you burning over there? And again, it's not easy, but what I have found is that even the attempt at this takes you very, very deep. Just to open yourself to the possibility of going there takes you very, very deep. And it's the only answer that I have to that tragic irony, is to try to bridge it as much as we can without the depression and the sadness. Because of course thinking about death is tragic. Experiencing death of loved ones is tragic. And the only last point that I would mention on that is grief needs its place. And whether we are the one grieving or whether we're the one consoling people who are grieving, typically what we do is we say, oh, stop crying, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay, you know. We wipe each other's tears and, you know, it's okay, you'll get over it, you know. Be strong. I don't know a world in which repression of your feelings equates strength. I don't know a world in which pushing away the current reality equates strength. Now, sometimes you may be a parent of very, very, very young children and you've lost a spouse and they've lost a parent and people need you to be strong for them. That's different. But in our own grieving, grief is very real and it needs a place. Grief occupies space. And if you don't create space for it or allow the space to be there because we try to squeeze it away into the I'm okay, go away, it just ends up popping up somewhere else. And so we allow ourselves the space. And over time what you find is that you never really stop grieving. I don't know anyone who has lost a loved one who ever really gets over it. But it changes over time. It no longer keeps you from sleeping or eating or thinking or enjoying. It no longer keeps you from living in joy. It doesn't keep you from laughing. It doesn't keep you from smiling. It doesn't keep you from marveling at a beautiful sunrise or sunset or a book or a movie. I mean, it no longer is something that interferes with and interrupts and pervades every aspect of life. But that's how it is in the beginning. And that's okay. And that's very real. And so whether we're the ones grieving or someone we care about is grieving, the most important thing is just allow the space for it. Slowly, what'll happen is into that space, when you're real with it, there'll be grief one moment, then maybe the grief shifts to anger. Then the anger will shift to joy, because a memory will come. You know, there'll be anger of how dare you leave me, or how dare you not have worn your seatbelt, or how dare you not have taken better care of your health, or how dare you, God, for taking this loved one away from me. Whoever the anger is directed toward. Then a memory will arise. And you'll smile or you'll laugh. You'll experience the love. And that's also real. Because the other thing we do in grief is we push away then the love. We push away the smiles. We push away the laughter, as though somehow while you're grieving, you shouldn't also be laughing and smiling at the beautiful memories that you have. Because that's also real. The years, the decades that person was with you brought lots and lots of joy and laughter. And that's just as real now as the grief at losing them. And so when we're honest with our emotions and we're able to just sit and allow them to be there, what you find is they shift. They shift like waves in an ocean, literally. It's pain, it's anger, it's joy, it's fear. What's going to happen to me now? Where are they? It's regret. I should have, I could have, I didn't, I shouldn't have. It's all of these different feelings. And so we have to make sure that there's lots of space inside us, and also that we try to create some space in our lives. Try to be a little bit unbusy for a while. Because it takes some time. And then who you are will shift and change a little bit. So as I said, it's not that you ever get over it. It's that who you are grows around that wound, around that emptiness, such that you don't always feel it as emptiness. And sometimes even in that emptiness, from that emptiness, other beautiful feelings grow. But it's different. It's different than it was before you lost the loved one. It's never going to be exactly the same. And we just allow. We allow the shift within us.